Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here with the writer-director, Tiffany Francis from Hello from Taiwan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, we've all just seen your pilot and we love it. I mean, when I say we, I mean me, and I'm sure the entire viewing audience. I just kind of want to dive in and know more about where did the inspiration come from in the project? Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. Oh man, so much. Well, it started off a long time ago as like this single scene, and that scene was based off of one of my earliest childhood memories, which stemmed from my sisters and I re-meeting each other at the airport for the first time in a year. And that was when I was about 4 or 5 or something like that. And I think because when you're so young, your memories are sort of like they're a little fuzzy and you don't really know everyone that comes in and out of your life so much. And when I re-met them at the airport, I was like, hi, who are you? And then they were also like, hi, hello. And that's all they could say for the moment because they were so, even though they're American and they can't, they're raised here, because they were in Taiwan for a year and they had to speak Mandarin, they were just, they were having to get reacquainted with English again when they came back here. So it was really, really interesting. And I mean, of course, they like remembered English immediately right after that, but that very moment was just interesting because that was how we could communicate, just through hi and hello. And that was really it always just struck me as like really funny. And I think eventually I really wanted to explore stories about my family because my dad passed away a few years ago, and I think I realized when he passed away that I didn't really know him very well, or as much as I would have liked to. And I was trying to explore, some of his past and think about some of his stories, and also, how did him and my mom interact and all that stuff before I was, even before I was born and kind of like into my childhood. And I realized there was all this stuff that I was missing. Like my parents got divorced at one point, they got back together. So I had a family fully intact as I grew up. But there was always a time that they were separated. And so just thinking about that, and also how, I don't know if it doesn't happen in a lot of families, but for them, they were like, we want to stay together for the sake of the kids, and they eventually came to that conclusion. And I don't know if that has to do with being Asian necessarily, but I think there is a lot of emphasis on family and your kids and sort of the sacrifices that you make for them. So I really wanted to kind of explore a lot of that as well. And so it developed into a short film, which I was very lucky to be able to make. And I never thought I'd make it because there's an airport scene and there's a lot of expensive stuff in there that I was like, I'm never going to make this short film, or proof of concept. But I got into the AFI directing workshop for women program, and luckily, they were really supportive, and we workshopped my film through that. And it just became I actually got to shoot it. So I'm very lucky in that respect.
I'm glad that you talked so much about the airport scene because that to me was just set it off as so powerful. That, I mean, just that meeting and even the production design was just, I found just so incredible. Just everything was so clean and crisp. And I guess, was that your goal with the aesthetic? What was your intention and from a design perspective?
Yeah, good question. I really was determined to do like sort of a mix between like almost like Asian art house cinema and then also very like very classic American cinema. So literally one of our references was me and my DP's references was ET. And then because there's a lot of low angles from like a child's point of view. And I just wanted to have like a very classic cinema feel, but then also a little bit of like, I like a little bit of like Asian cinema. I was like influenced by this movie called Shoplifters, which came out a few years ago that I got into to Cannes, and then also a lot of Wong Kar-wai films, and sort of just like that sort of a sort of mix and blend of that. And then in terms of the design aesthetic, like we use a lot of whites, a lot of blues, a lot of reds, and both of those colors are American and Taiwan flag colors. So it kind of worked out in that sense that there was like, very, very patriotic, but sort of ironic in a way, feeling to it.
That's great. Well, you talked about the airport scene, kind of having an autobiographical component to it. But there was definitely a theme throughout of cracks, foundations, and, can you talk a little bit about that, of the reoccurring theme and how that came into play?
Yeah, I mean, I was really so hard to think about, how does a child, like, how do we visualize a child's trauma without making it so too obvious, or her just saying it. So even as a child, I had like a huge imagination. So I think I kind of used that as like as a visual motif to kind of tie everything together. And definitely that earthquake scene, that was like drawn from like, the San Francisco earthquake of like 1989. And I definitely remember being there with my mom just alone and having that experience with her. And I think I really needed something to show that there was something that they went through together, and that she just holds on to it so tightly, and then it becomes this thing that her imagination takes off into different ways, that she's experiencing a little bit of like trauma and different things like that, and realizing that her family is like the foundation of her home is sort of crumbling or not working right now, so
Mm-hmm.
it just, yeah, it ended up being really fun to work with, but a lot of work.
Oh, it was really powerful though. And even the cracks on the window in the scene with Christy and her dad in the car, which was just like clutching my chest that whole time. I would love to hear actually about the dad's decision to kind of reverse action. He's heading towards the door and then just bolts. How did that, I guess, where did you draw that from? Where was just hopefully not something you experienced, first of all?
Definitely not something I experienced.
Okay, good. But do you think it's just like the father with the torment or indecision of kind of how to proceed with the family?
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of like that he wasn't being allowed to make decisions in the way that he wanted to, right? And so I think he just needed a way to be able to do that his own way, even if it was the wrong way, and kind of just being a little bit selfish in a way. I think like even the way my mom and dad sometimes would refer to each other, I think that they ultimately made the bigger decisions that were like, sacrificing for everyone else and not necessarily selfish. But then like in their like little small everyday interactions, sometimes they would have those like moments, where everyone's just trying to carve out their own path in a way. And how do you function in a family like that? And so I kind of wanted him to have his own little moment with Christy, because he didn't get to have a chance to really see her grow up so much. And that's sort of his way of trying to do that, but obviously not the right decision. Yeah.
Right. I want to give you a shameless compliment, and then it's going to follow up into a question. So stay with me for a second. I went to, I was a film major. I did not go to AFI, but like the one thing that really stuck with me from school was show, don't tell, like don't lay it out for the audience, but show them. And the scene when Christy switched from the fork to the chopsticks was like the best example. I want to like show that to every film student, be like, show, don't tell. And I just loved, and when she did like, I just fell in love with her in that moment. I mean, I loved her already, but just even more so. She was just such a gem. How did you find Christy? How was that a hard part to cast?
Yeah, it was a very hard part to cast. Oh man, I mean, and you wouldn't believe how many, 5 to 7-year-old kids we were seeing on auditions, but yeah, we were really lucky to find balance. She was just such a gem. She was 7 at the time, when we filmed, and she was playing a 5-year-old. So she's a little bit more, she's a little bit more on top of it, a little bit more mature than how she's acting. So it's kind of interesting, because I was like, you're 5, right? And she'd be like, yes. and even though she was so intelligent, she could read really well. She memorized things very quickly. And so when she came to audition, I was so shocked. I was like, we have someone who actually memorized all the lines. We gave them the hardest scene, which is the car sequence, actually, for the auditions, just because that was like the test, right? That was like the ultimate test if they can make it or not. And then as soon as I gave her directions, she took it, and I think that was like just such an amazing quality I could see in a person. And she was very experienced, because she's been in a lot of Disney Princess Club stuff on YouTube, and obviously now she's doing very well in her career. She was like on This Is Us recently and is killing it out there. But yeah, I think she was just I just saw in her, just incredible potential immediately. And I was like, she's the one, that she's the only one, so
It's
it
great.
was incredible.
I mean, all the actors did a fantastic job, but I mean, just honestly, kudos, the production design, special effects. I mean, the direction, obviously. It's such a powerful story, and I'm so glad that you shared it with us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be part of SeriesFest.
Okay.
It's cool.
We're lucky to have you. So thank you for joining us today and telling us about the project.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Thanks.
having me.